Dinosaur Planet is one of gaming's lost treasures that has intrigued people for well over a decade. What was to be rare limited swan song title for Nintendo 64 was transformed into one of the most divisive installments in a Nintendo franchise, Starfox Adventures. Now, that isn't to say Starfox Adventures is a bad game. In fact, I recommend it for anyone with the means to play it and can get it for cheap. But Starfox Adventures was met with a lot of mixed reactions. Star Fox fans weren't too happy with the departure from the rail shooter formula of previous titles, and considered SFA to be just an okay Zelda clone with a Star Fox license tacked onto it. For Dinosaur Planet fans past and present, they felt robbed of what would have potentially been Rare's greatest Nintendo 64 game yet, showcasing the very best of what the 64-bit box was capable of, along with an extensive story and world. Whether you enjoy Star Fox Adventures or not, there's no denying that it's only a mere shadow of what it could have been. To Dino Planet diehards, myself included, a good deal of us have asked this question at some point, in some form or another. Would it be possible to recreate Dinosaur Planet as it should have been? If you're watching this, chances are you're already familiar with Dinosaur Planet. Developed by Rare, the company behind Nintendo 64 classics like Banjo-Kazooie and Conker's Bad Fur Day, Dinosaur Planet was supposed to be their final game for the system, and was by far their most ambitious at the time. As told by the official game summary, Dinosaur Planet was a 3D action-adventure game very similar to the Zelda games on the same console. Players would take control of siblings Saber and Crystal, and swap between the two throughout the adventure as they battled the forces of the evil General Scales. Saber and Crystal would also be accompanied by dinosaur sidekicks Tricky and Kite, who could assist the player by retrieving items, distracting enemies, and uncovering secrets via digging or fire breath. It's hard to really talk about Dinosaur Planet without bringing up the history behind it. Not just the events that ended up with the transition over to Star Fox Adventures, but the various discoveries in the years far after SFA's initial release. Dinosaur Planet was originally conceived as a sequel to Diddy Kong Racing, to the extent of it being based on the same engine and codebase. In fact, leftovers from Diddy Kong Racing can be found on the demo and retail disc for Star Fox Adventures. Dinosaur Planet began development sometime after Diddy Kong Racing's release, though it wouldn't be until the middle of the year 2000 that Rare saw the game fit for public viewing. Alongside Banjo-Tooie, Perfect Dark, and a plethora of other colorful booths, Dinosaur Planet saw its debut at E3 2000. Reporters from major game sites and other visitors got a taste of the demo at the Nintendo 64 showcase, and many of them were blown away by the amazing job Rare had done with the Saurian spectacle. Of course, every good game has its share of problems. According to programmer and former Rare staff Phil Tossell, the DP demo shown at E3 was prone to crashing, to the point where Nintendo helpers had to reset the console every now and then. Even with the added power of the required expansion pack, Dinosaur Planet ran no faster than 15 frames per second, as it was pushing the limits of the Nintendo 64 more so than what Conker had achieved without the pack. Dinosaur Planet was later shown off at the Europe Computer Trade Show in the September of 2000, which marked the last time the game would be seen in its original Nintendo 64 form. Development on the game was shifted to the more powerful Nintendo GameCube, sometime after an infamous exchange you're probably familiar with. During DP's time at E3 2000, famed Nintendo designer Shigeru Miyamoto made a comment to Rare about the protagonist Saber looking like Star Fox's own Fox McCloud, and thought that maybe the Star Fox license could be incorporated into Dinosaur Planet. Whether this comment was made in jest or as an actual suggestion is still uncertain, but most know it as the spark that began the game's transformation into a Star Fox title. Rare didn't wish to turn the game they worked so hard on into another brand altogether, but it seems it was less likely they were afraid of ripping off Fox McCloud and more of a sales issue. Sales for the Nintendo 64 and its games were declining by 2000, with only a handful of titles being released in 2001. Considering Dinosaur Planet was to be released sometime in that year as an expansion pack only title, it would have been a profitable move for Rare. Alongside a development shift to GameCube as a potential launch title, the strength of a Nintendo IP would help the game and brand, as showcased with Rare's previous efforts with the Donkey Kong Country titles. Unfortunately, this wouldn't be enough to save Starfox Adventures. Starfox Adventures had a rocky development history. The Dinosaur Planet code was ported over to the Nintendo GameCube, with many things being added, removed, and rewritten to fit the Star Fox universe. Fox naturally replaced Saber as the main lead. Crystal was originally to be scrapped, but instead was reworked into a minor character, possibly because Rare grew attached to her and didn't just want to drop her. While Crystal was originally to have a more significant role in Star Fox Adventures according to unused voice lines in the retail disc, she was turned into a damsel in distress figure in the final game due to the rushed development. Late in SFA's development cycle, Rare founders Tim and Chris Stamper were in negotiations with Microsoft about the company buying Rare for a hefty sum. Because of the impending buyout, the team had to tie up the game as quick as they could, which ended up with the final clash with scales being cut out, and instead replaced with an unexpected yet disappointing fight against a familiar foe.
I have experience fighting giant space faces
that look like Andros! Oh my god!
To see you again!
Shut up!
Star Fox Adventures couldn't meet its launch title promises due to development issues alongside the looming buyout, and was released in fall of 2002. Shortly after the game's release, Microsoft ended up purchasing Rare and their properties, ending the company's relationship with Nintendo outside of a few handheld titles. The whole history behind Star Fox Adventures is rather lengthy, but that's the best way I can sum it up for those who need a refresher. More information on the game's history can be read at the Cutting Room Floor Wiki, or part 10 of the Nostalgia Gamer's Rare retrospective video series. Anyhow, with that out of the way, let's get to the more interesting stuff. I started getting into Dinosaur Planet around early 2005. Sometime in the middle of the year, a fellow by the name of K-Cat dug around in Star Fox Adventures retail disc and found a file that contained various text strings from older builds of the game, including Dinosaur Planet. These strings include debug text, item descriptions, dialogue text, and tutorial text that would have fit the original DP. Some notable story elements mentioned in the dialogue include background on the Spellstone Guardians, renamed as Gatekeepers in SFA, a dramatic confrontation with General Scales, and most surprising of all, Dracor having a major role in the game outside of being a simple boss encounter as he was in SFA. Rare has had quite a few games that would never see the light of day or were turned into new titles, such as Project Dream becoming Banjo-Kazooie and Conker's 12 Tales becoming Conker's Bad Fur Day. However, those games seem to have been rewritten and built from the ground up, with little to none of the original code or assets from either Dream or 12 Tales and Banjo or Conker's ROM data. As mentioned before, Dinosaur Planet's code was directly ported to GameCube, so these strings were likely DP leftovers that weren't deleted during development. As time went on, more and more remnants from Dinosaur Planet and older builds of Star Fox Adventures were uncovered from SFA's retail data. Level names, unused voice clips, DLL files, object names, and many more files that are a bit complicated to talk about here. At the time, it wasn't much, but it gave us a good idea of what was in the original Dinosaur Planet, and what was planned for Star Fox Adventures had it not been rushed to completion. The early 2010s would mark several huge discoveries in the interconnected Dinosaur Planet community. In mid-2012, IONI Falcon posted never-before-seen Dinosaur Planet documents on their site Rare Minion, now called Rare Thief. Used internally at Rare, these included various unreleased concept art, screenshots, music, character renders, and a condensed story detailing the entire plot of the game, save for the ending, which according to Phil Tossell, was never fully fought out. IONI Falcon would also later post an hour of footage from an older build of Dinosaur Planet, as well as an alpha trailer sporting a radically different logo. The following year in mid-2013, Joel user Kool-Aid Man posted a ROM of a kiosk build of Star Fox Adventures, dating to May 17, 2002. While the ROM itself isn't actually playable without emulator wizardry, that wasn't what Joel was interested in. What drew their attention were files that weren't in the retail version of Star Fox Adventures. Beetle models and textures, sound bank and sequence files for most of DP's music, and various DP sound effects. There was even a work-in-progress version of an actual fight against General Scales. Most importantly, there was a file that contained over an hour of Dinosaur Planet voice acting, giving a more in-depth view of events involved in the original story. Things started to slow down until more recently in October 2017. Joel user Hugo Peters started work on a tool for viewing models from the SFA Chaosgram, which includes various props, characters, objects, and even level geometry from both Dinosaur Planet and early Starfox Adventures builds. There's still more to be pieced together and textured, but what's been posted so far is pretty big regardless. All these findings give us an even greater idea of what Dinosaur Planet was originally intended to be, and the people over at Jella and other sites are still determined to figure out what secrets the rest of the ROM's files hold. Over the years, there's been more and more interest in Dinosaur Planet, particularly in communities dedicated to the research and preservation of cancelled games and betas. Hackers are determined to pick apart Starfox Adventures in search of any other DP remnants, and gaming historians still search the net far and wide for any DP-related information worth preserving. There's also others taking a more creative route and celebrating the legacy of Dinosaur Planet through fan art, fanfiction, fan videos, you name it. Two projects I highly recommend looking into are the ongoing fan comic retelling of Starfox Adventures and an animated Dinosaur Planet fan series that's still in the works. Regardless of how people involve themselves in Dinosaur Planet's history long after its cancellation, many still have the mutual desire to see the game in its original form, either as a leaked ROM or a remake. Unfortunately, to this day, no ROM dumps for Dinosaur Planet exist in any form, and any copies of the game that still exist are likely hidden away in Rare's archives if they exist at all. Plus, you have to keep in mind that Dinosaur Planet wasn't even finished by the time the Starfox conversion happened. So if we did happen to get a ROM of the game, it would be incomplete and likely very buggy. Well, can't Rare just remake the game, you might ask? It's clear Rare hasn't forgotten about the Dinosaur Planet legacy. They still have the statue of Saber and Crystal from E3 at their headquarters, and tend to show it off on occasion alongside statues of other Rare characters. However, a remake by them doesn't seem likely, even as a remaster or add-on for their Rare Replay collection. In a 2008 interview with Videogamer.com, former Rare senior software engineer Nick Burton commented that though the game wouldn't necessarily fit today's gaming climate, Dinosaur Planet would be a great fit for modern hardware, but unfortunately it seems to be one of those things that's locked in limbo. Burton didn't specify exactly what he meant by DP being locked in limbo, but there are a few reasons one can garner from this. One reason is that, like Banjo and Conker, many of Dinosaur Planet's key staff are no longer with Rare. People like programmer Phil Tossell and character artist Kevin Bayliss are now part of Playtonic, and other members of the original DP team are now with other independent teams or flying solo. Granted, it would be possible for a Rare-made remake of Dinosaur Planet under a brand new team, but then that raises another issue and another reason a DP remake likely won't be happening for some time. Copyright is an incredibly muddy topic when it comes to Dinosaur Planet being remade, but it's still likely that Rare could get in legal trouble with Nintendo. Generally, anything involved in Starfox Adventures is technically property of Nintendo, and Crystal and Tricky have appeared in various Starfox games following SFA's release. However, Star Fox Assault has garnered mixed reviews, and the less I say about Star Fox Command, the better. Since then, it seems Nintendo's trying to make a clean start of the franchise again with the release of Star Fox 64 3D and Star Fox Zero. Despite the latter's rocky reception, Star Fox as of lately seems to be retconning the characters and elements introduced in Star Fox Adventures, and going back to the franchise's roots as a rail shooter after the mixed feedback from SFA and the games that followed. There is a reference to Soria, the name of Dinosaur Planet in Star Fox Assault, mentioned in the animated short for Star Fox Zero, though it's likely this is just an Easter egg more than anything else. Yusuke Hashimoto, the director of Star Fox Zero and a staff member of Platinum Games, has also commented on Twitter that he would love to include Crystal if Platinum ever ends up making a sequel to Zero. So what does this mean about the legality of a Rare-made Dinosaur Planet remake? Well, at best this would have to be something that Rare and Nintendo would have to negotiate, should the opportunity present itself. Curiously, a picture of a Crystal render used for the game's E3 2000 booth poster notes that the characters remain property of Rare/Microsoft. Does this mean that the DP versions of Crystal, Tricky, and other characters are still Rare's property, and the Star Fox versions of them are separate entities owned by Nintendo? That's my speculation, at least. I'll admit I don't know much about legal issues in game development, and how those would relate to copyright issues surrounding a Dinosaur Planet remake. If anyone more versed in this would like to give me their take on the situation, hit me up.